Okay, I'm so excited to have you here, Cassidy. If you could just introduce yourself and share with everyone what it is that you do.
Thank you, Robin. I'm so excited to be here on your podcast. I am Cassidy Green, and I call myself a mindful hypnotist because I'm a hypnotist and a mindfulness practitioner. So I'm a
Love it.
mindfulness hypnotist.
It's like so fascinating. I want to get into it and like really experience what it is that you do. But tell us a little bit about how did you get there? How did you decide this is what I want to do? You make a huge impact on people's lives and you help them to live a life that they love, but how did you find this exact calling?
Okay, so I used to be a teacher. I taught elementary for a lot of years. And my childhood was very traumatic and I just repressed it. I didn't deal with it. I just kind of blocked it. And then towards the end of my teaching career, it was getting really challenging there. And I started, the PTSD started rearing its ugly head. And I became very anxietized and very depressed. But I honestly don't even think I knew that. I just thought I was like, there was something wrong with me because I was never happy, but yet I had to put on this happy face all the time because that's what everybody knew me to be, like this smiling, loving, happy person. I couldn't disappoint. And
Mhm.
so nobody knew like what the dark things going on were because I just was living this, I was living a lie. And then it got so dark that I couldn't take it anymore. Like I couldn't take like trying to please everyone, all the demands all over me, being a wife, being a mom, being a teacher. I couldn't take it anymore. And so I tried to end my life and I was almost successful and was in the hospital for a while. And because of that, I had to go to talk therapy and I got put on 7 medications for depression and anxiety and PTSD. And I kept going through many different therapists, and no one could quite get me going. So then they sent me to a psychiatrist who said, "Hey, you should do electroshock therapy." And anyone who's ever done that, like, I don't hold it against you, but it wasn't something I could endure. So I found another talk therapist, and she was also a hypnotist. And after my first session, about 2 days later, I was like smiling. And I hadn't had an authentic smile that wasn't like I knew what I was telling my face to do. And so I was like, I wonder what this is all about. So I went back and we did another session, and then I just started feeling better. And it was like real, genuine feeling good. So that made me just like want to scream it from the rooftops like hypnosis helps. And so I started on my own mission to understand the workings of my mind through hypnosis. And then I also do mindfulness so that the two of those really like ground you and center you. And that's how I got into hypnosis.
Wow, that's amazing. Um, so how old were your kiddos at that time?
My kids were older.
Okay.
Now, I will let you know that my youngest is autistic, so that's a whole nother ball of wax.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he's an adult, it's a full-time job in and of itself.
Oh, yeah,
So
absolutely.
my oldest was, at the time where I tried to end my life, he was 19. And then, so my youngest would have been 16 or 17. Yeah.
Mm, okay.
Yeah.
How was that for them? Okay, they're old enough to understand kind of what's going on.
Yes. It was really hard for them to see me in the hospital. And I think that they started noticing because I didn't engage with them anymore, really. It would be like, how was your day? And I didn't like really have
Yeah.
those lasting conversations or those like really good mom conversations because all I wanted to do was like just go into my bed and get into my hole and cry.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. How long do you think this was leading up to that moment? Was it years or months, or how
Oh,
long were you in the deep, like the dark season?
the dark season. had started years prior. And looking back, I had probably come in and out of it
Mhm.
numerous times. And my youngest, when I had him, I had postpartum depression, and then
Mhm.
he was very, very sick. And then finding out like a couple of years later that he was autistic because he didn't speak or anything for years. So that was always trying too. So I think I had come in and out,
Mhm.
but then I got into the season where I couldn't get out. And I want to say that was probably about a good year, if not even more. And then it just, the last year, it just got darker and darker and darker.
Mhm. Well, I just appreciate you sharing that because, I know that people can relate to feeling, the same way. And, the whole purpose is to share that there's other options, right? So
Yeah.
like not to get stuck in that season for too long. I think that
Yes.
there's ebbs and flows in life. There are seasons where it's, harder and you struggle, but knowing when to get help, knowing when you need to pull yourself out of it, not hiding it, right? Like I can so relate. After my two older kids, I had postpartum depression and didn't know it. And just thought like, oh, it's just me. I'm just this emotional person. I'm an empath as well. So I'm feeling every single
Yes.
thing around me and I'm absorbing and that's just who I am and it's okay. Like that's just the way it has to be, but it can be different. Like you do not need to suffer. That's what like the big message is. Don't suffer in silence. Don't just think that you're different than everyone else because everyone has had moments in their life where they've had doubts or they've had, thoughts of depression or, really challenging mental states. So you are not alone. And I want just to make sure that everyone knows that.
I completely agree. And what you said, like knowing when to ask for help, because sometimes I think, especially like in the now, because mental health is more readily accepted.
Mhm.
Um, but I do think like there's a point where you also have to go through the feelings. You don't want to mask them, but you also don't want to just be like, oh, I'm just going to reframe it and change it to positive and everything is good, because you have to have the feelings because that's what keeps us alive. It's
Mhm.
knowing when to acknowledge them and accept them, and then be able to like release them and make peace with them, because I believe that everything is like showing us and teaching us.
Mhm.
And like maybe we're not listening to our body. Maybe our body, especially with like postpartum depression, maybe something happened when we gave birth, and our body's telling us like, you really need to rest. That was really traumatic on your body. So listening to what's going on is also a big thing. But yeah, please ask for help, because we've all been there. Everybody has goods and not so goods.
Yes, absolutely. I love that you said that because it's so true. I think that it's like for me, when I have like an uncomfortable thought or feeling, um, I really investigate it. Like I sit in it. I kind of like play around with it. I want to like take it apart, literally, like pull the threads of a sweater, like, okay, where did that come from? And I think about like what led up to that thought. Why am I thinking this? And I'll sit there and think and think and think. And then I'll get to the bottom of like where it came from.
Mhm.
And then I can, justify it like, okay, that I got it, like that's real, and just allow it to just flow and then be released because I'm understanding it, right? It's like I understand like where it came from. Okay, I'm gonna grow from this, I'm gonna learn from this, I'm gonna whatever I need to do with this thought or feeling, but not I don't let it like hold me hostage anymore,
Yes.
but I also don't ignore it either because both of those I think are so harmful for you
Mhm.
because you don't want to just, push refrain, then it's just going to burst at some point.
Yes.
And you also don't want to, just let it completely consume you because, you're so like the mind is so powerful.
Mhm.
And it's like understanding that we have the choice to change our thoughts, right? Like, okay, that's not serving me in that way. Let me see how I can like, okay, repurpose this thought, right?
Yes. Well, and so okay, how the brain and thoughts and feelings work is you okay, so a thought comes in which creates the emotion, and the emotion creates the feeling.
Mm,
So like that's how you get those physical feelings, like when you're nervous about something and you get butterflies in your stomach. And so like I said, it's the brain is saying something which is causing those emotions, which is causing those feelings. So it's important to like really, like you said, investigate like what is this showing me? And it may not be like what we think it is. So we can, when you break it down, it may not be exactly what you think it is. It could be your mind just playing those old thought patterns, the patterns that we've learned, because our patterns are developed from the time we're born until we're 8. And that becomes like your constant patterns of thoughts and actions. And we can change those. I mean, you're not stuck in those for life, but unless you know that, you can just keep those same thought patterns on repetition over and over and over, because the unconscious mind loves repetition, it loves patterns. So that's the
mm.
beauty of hypnosis, is we can go through and break into the unconscious and get like think those thought patterns, and then reprogram new ones in that you want. And
Wow.
yeah, yeah,
That's amazing. And so knowing that and having young kids, it's like, how can we help them with their thought process and their patterns,
yeah,
and not getting stuck in these like the thought processes and patterns that aren't serving?
yes. With children, it's hard to be able to be 100%, because they're up until they're 8, they're influenced by everything. So not just your home environment, you've got teachers, you've got grandparents, aunts and uncles, coaches, wherever they are. So
Mhm.
as a parent, what you can do is just make sure that you're having open dialogue, and that you are letting them have their feelings. Because I don't know, like for me, when I was growing up, I was always told like, good girls don't cry, good girls don't act out, good girls don't do this. And so good girls don't question anything. They just, pretty much you sit submissively and do what you're told.
Mhm.
And so I always thought like I wasn't allowed to have a voice. I wasn't allowed to um, cry in front of somebody else. I wasn't allowed to question anything. And so I think, especially with children, like allowing them to have their feelings, have their thoughts, have their questions. And as parents, that can be trying sometimes, because like you come home from work or something and you're exhausted and you've got to get dinner, and they're like, mommy, 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 I want to talk to you about this. And you're just like, but just, taking those 5 minutes, because
Mhm.
dinner can wait 5 minutes. Or and if they're having a bad day, like asking them, so what happened today, and letting them process exactly what happened, and
Mhm.
then like work through it together and listen to their thought process. Like, are they blaming it on themselves? Are they seeing it, maybe like they said something to someone else? Are they seeing that through the other person's eyes? So I think like teaching them how to also be empathetic to other people as well is good.
Oh, that's such good advice. That's great. Okay, so let's get into the hip. Like, I am not very familiar with how it works or
Okay.
anything. It sounds really fancy. It sounds really like magical. I don't know how it works, but I'm very curious. I want to know,
Okay.
like, how does it actually work? How do you do the practice? How do you learn how to be a hypnosis? How do you actually go in, and like, what does that even look like?
Okay. So hypnosis is 100% natural, and you actually are in and out of it every day.
Okay.
So, say for example, do you read books?
Yes.
So,
No, I
have you ever
listen to them. Does it
you
count?
listen to them? Okay.
Yes.
Even listening, have you ever like been listening to a really good book and you're just so into it you don't even realize like a half an hour has gone by?
Yes.
That's hypnosis. So, or you're into a really good television program, and like you kind of even feel like you're that character. That's hypnosis. When you drive, it's somewhere you've traveled all the time, and you get in the car and you like all of a sudden you're there and you're getting out of the car and you're like, I don't even remember getting here.
Yes.
That's hypnosis. So it's a 100% natural state. And going to a hypnotist or hypnotherapist, they're the same thing. It just depends on the state that the practitioner lives in. So some states require if to be called a hypnotherapist if you have like a psychology degree. In some states, like mostly out west, it doesn't matter. You can be a hypnotherapist, it doesn't matter. So that's the difference between a hypnotist and a hypnotherapist.
Okay.
So when you go to a hypnotist, they're guiding you into a deep state of relaxation. And generally, it's through like visualization processes. What I do with my clients is we talk about like what programs they want to change. So like maybe they're saying, I don't want to hate myself anymore, or I don't want to hate the way I look, or things like that. Then we're going to change the thoughts and we're going to embed whatever thoughts they want in there. And so it's just words. I'm just using words, and it accesses your unconscious mind. And how it does that is there's kind of like this critical mind in the middle of your conscious and unconscious mind. So like I said, your unconscious mind is developing those patterns until the age of 8. After the age of 8 until like 13, that's where the critical factor is being created, and then from there on. So the critical factor is kind of like the shield that protects the unconscious mind. And what I mean by that is there's like, I don't remember the exact, I should have looked it up, but it's been a little while since my training, so I don't remember the, but there's something like 3 million or 3 billion bits of information coming into your mind like every minute. And your conscious mind only accesses like 64 bits of that information. So what's happening is that information is coming in and the critical factor is going, I identify with that. I identify with that. Nope, nope, nope. I'm going to file. And so when you go into hypnosis, we can bypass the critical mind and get into the unconscious mind. So like if there's past traumas, we can get in there. We can, accept what has happened, and then either forgive it or like, have it out with whatever needs, and then be able to release that for your, so that you can move on, because a lot of times things are stuck there and that's what's causing some of these problems. And so we can release it and let it go. And then it's amazing. It just like the person just feels lighter and lifted and just more beautiful. And then there's self-hypnosis, which I always teach my clients so that when they're not working with me anymore, and that can be either, I can teach you how to do it, like how to sit or lay down and what things to say, or you can just listen to a guided audio. And so that is self-hypnosis.
That's awesome. It sounds kind of similar to meditation. Is it like a little bit kind of in the same realm, but different?
Yes. So the difference between meditation and hypnosis is meditation is more just to get into a state of relaxation.
Mm-hmm.
Hypnosis, you go into a deep state of relaxation, but there's I don't want to necessarily say a problem, but there's usually something that you want to resolve or change.
Mm-hmm.
And so it has like an intended outcome. And you
Gotcha.
go a little bit deeper than meditation.
Mm-hmm. What if someone comes in and they don't know exactly what they want to address? They just know that, like, similar to you, like, I'm just not in a good state of mind and I need to feel the joy again. Like, how do you kind of navigate that?
Well, I do ask a lot of questions.
Mm,
And so I would delve deeper into like if okay, so you just want to feel joy again, like what isn't feeling joyful? Because when you ask questions, you usually can get to the root of the problem. And a lot of times when people are just saying like, I don't feel good, I just want to feel joyful, they've kind of closed off. So they've like closed off their heart, or they've closed off to the feelings other than that dark, icky feeling. And so asking a lot of questions helps lead to what maybe not even the root, but at least to dig a little till you get to the root. And generally, if they can't even like verbalize that, then we need to get them to a state of just feeling a little bit better. And so then I will tailor the hypnosis session to talking to the unconscious mind, like just feeling better. And we'll talk about like what that looks like, what that feels like, and what would it look like in a week from now, a month from now, a year from now. And then I will tailor the hypnosis to how they've described what it would look like, what it would feel like, and I put that into their hypnosis
Mm,
session.
okay, that's good. And it's like, from what it sounds like, you get this immediate release. You
Mhm.
automatically feel the weight shifting and lifting a little bit. That's got to be
Absolutely.
pretty
Yeah.
like satisfying for you as the person, the hypnosis, but also the person that's struggling, because
Yeah.
um a lot, and there's still probably more inner work to do, but a lot of times when you're in that state, you just need some wins. You just need
Yes.
like to feel better.
Absolutely. And I mean, that was the case for me. Like, I just needed to feel better because I wasn't, even with all the resources around me, I wasn't feeling better. And if you can get like even 10 minutes of feeling real, like happiness, where you're really smiling and you're like, I'm not telling myself like to smile,
Yeah.
it's just happening, and you're kind of like singing to the music or whatever, that is a huge win. And it just, the beautiful thing also about hypnosis is it's not done like right then. It keeps processing, like even through your sleep and through the next day, it keeps going. And so you start to feel even a little more better like the next day. And so then you're like, okay. And then if someone's at that point where they just need to feel a little bit better, then they feel a little bit better and they can think, okay, maybe this is what's going on. And so then we can do more work. Or a lot of times it's something that has happened in childhood, and they have repressed that and don't even know. And um, sometimes in hypnosis they realize like what the underlying problem is. They might see it or feel it, because hypnosis, it's a beautiful thing sometimes. And even myself, like I've felt it in many different ways. Sometimes you can feel really heavy and like you're just kind of sinking into the surface beneath you. Other times it can feel really like you're light and tingling, kind of floating. Or other times it's like we're having a conversation and you just hear my voice. And so I forgot what I was going with on that.
No,
But
you're
yeah,
good.
so I know where I was going. So sometimes in hypnosis, I'm not a very good visualizer. Like, I don't necessarily see pictures, but I see like colors, or I feel feelings, because I'm an empath too. So I feel things very deeply. And so in a hypnosis, I can feel things. And a lot of times people can feel, see, or even like get guidance of what is blocking them in the session.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I think so. Several years ago, whenever I thought about the thought of hypnosis, I think it kind of scared me because I have heard like of people going into a session and learning things that happened to them that they didn't realize or they didn't remember, they didn't know. So it's like, um, I mean, do you see that a lot of times where they uncover like something that they weren't aware of, or they weren't, you know, from their childhood that maybe comes back up?
Um, okay, well, I have two parts there.
Okay.
So when I was going to this last therapist that was the hypnotist, what I didn't share was she had tried to get me to do hypnosis many, many times before I did. And I kept saying, like I would put my fingers over my ears and I'd be like, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
And because I thought she was going to mind control me. And I really thought she was going to mind control me to do the electroshock therapy. So I was against it for several months
Uh-huh.
until I had a full on panic attack about leaving the office. And she just was like, this is really going to help you. And so when I did that, I was like, okay, the second part is you cannot do anything in hypnosis that you would not do normally. So I can't tell you to do something. And if there's something that is in your childhood, I'm not going to say like, no, you can't discover things. But generally, if you've blocked it, it starts to come up not necessarily in hypnosis. Like that might be why you're having the depression and you're going to start getting other things. So if it's in hypnosis, it's okay, I remember that. And I have had clients, like I had one that she knew something had happened, but she didn't know what it was. And it was really traumatizing her because she knew it wasn't good, but she didn't know how to
Mhm.
address it. So we went into hypnosis and I took her back to the perceived age range. She didn't know the exact age range. And she was, seeing what had happened and feeling what had happened. And it turned out like it wasn't as what she had thought it was. And so it turned
Mhm.
out to be a beautiful experience for her, which really helped. But when we have a situation like that, it's a conversation that we have ahead of time.
Mhm.
If somebody is starting to like think things or are feeling things that are uncomfortable and that they don't want to do, like we would have that conversation before. What do you not want to feel? And if they start
Mhm.
going down there, I'm going to bring them out immediately
Mhm.
because that isn't serving the purpose of healing.
Mhm. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. It's so fascinating. Um, so how do you typically work with clients? Is it in person only, or do you do both, like virtual and in person? What does that look like?
I am 99% virtual because
Okay.
I live out in the middle of nowhere. So I don't really have a lot of people around me. But I'm 99% virtual. I do some in person summits, retreats, workshops, things like that. But yeah, and I like virtual because then I can meet people all over the world.
Hmm.
And a big question I get asked is, can hypnosis be effective? Because people think you have to like do the pendulum and all these things, but no, it's actually it has been proven to be even more effective online because the person is in the comfort of their own home where they feel safe and secure rather than coming into like a more sterile environment.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's good to know. And then is it similar to just setting up the Zoom call and kind of walking
Yes.
through it? Do you have them like lay down and listen like through headphones or different things like that?
Well, I have them either sit or lie down, whichever is more comfortable. I prefer for their camera to be on, but
Mhm.
some people prefer to turn it off. Headphones is a personal choice. If you feel comfortable with headphones, or if there's going to be a lot of like noise that you just even shutting the door you can't block, then I would recommend headphones. Mhm.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
so cool. It's like really amazing work that you're able to impact someone's life like that. And and allow them to know that it's possible to move past whatever they're going through and like come to the other side and enjoy life again, right? Um, I was gonna ask you one more question. I forgot what it was.
And I feel like it also, I'm into like energy, and I feel like hypnosis, it helps to raise your vibrational frequency, which then, of
Mm,
course, if you understand like manifestation, it's going to allow you to manifest too because you're vibing higher than if you were stuck in that icky feeling. So, yeah.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You're just in a loop, you're in that
Yes.
that awful dark loop and it's hard
Yes.
to get out sometimes. So
Yes.
How many sessions usually does a person do on average?
That is a great question. And unfortunately, there's not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
If it's a smoking, I do too. If it's, like we've been talking about, like that really dark, I would suggest, I mean, you can do it in three, but I would suggest at least five. And then if you're just, so I work with some empath entrepreneurs. If you're just looking for like, I'm afraid to be seen, I don't know, that's about three. So it's I like to customize each person,
Yes.
so it's hard for me to say like this is, six is going to solve you.
Yeah, that's so
There's
true.
no one and done. So I'm sorry. Yeah,
No, you're fine. I was just curious, if it's like this ongoing thing that you have to do like every few months just to like tune it, or if it's like once you're done with your sessions that you think is best, then like it's done, like that part is released. You might need to come back for something else if you're struggling with another different area. Is that correct?
absolutely. That is
Okay.
correct. But I also, it's not just that I just guide you through hypnosis. Like I'm also giving you tools and techniques,
Mm.
um, because when you're in that season of darkness, you're not remembering to ground yourself. You're not remembering to stay present. You might not even be like having gratitude practices for
Mhm.
yourself and others around. So we are establishing like routines and things to keep you present, grounded, grateful. So yeah, but usually once it has been released, accepted, the problem generally goes away. And I'm not going to say like you don't get triggered
Mhm.
by because the patterns or other things come up and you're like, well, that really helped, so I'm going to go back for this one. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, well, can you share with everyone where they can connect with you and work with you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, so that's Cassidy Rose Green, and then my website is CassidyRoseGreen.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been a beautiful conversation, and I'm so happy that you've joined us and shared your story.
Thank you. It was so wonderful. Thank you.
Of course.